Imagine opening your energy bill and seeing a zero. Not a credit, not a mistake, but a zero every single month, every single year. That is not a fantasy. That is Tuesday for an Amish family in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. What you are about to learn is the exact system they use to heat, cool, and power their homes without paying a single cent to a utility company. Not solar panels, not wind turbines, not anything you have seen advertised. This is older, simpler, and so effective that several states have quietly written building codes specifically designed to prevent you from doing it. Stay with me until the end, because the last technique I'm going to share with you is something I have never seen in a single modern construction guide. And when I finally understood why, everything clicked into place. The average American household spends $2,400 every year on energy. That is $24,000 over a decade. $120,000 over 50 years. Money that flows straight from your wallet into the hands of utility companies that have spent millions lobbying to make sure you keep paying. And here is the question I want you to sit with while we go through all of this. What if the most effective home energy system ever designed was already perfected 400 years ago? And the only reason you do not live in one is because someone else profits from your ignorance. Let me start with the foundation. The absolute first thing an Amish master builder does before he picks up a single tool is stand on the land and watch where the sun travels. This is not mysticism. This is physics. Every Amish home in Holmes County, Ohio, is oriented with its longest wall facing within 10 degrees of true south. Every single one. This is called passive solar orientation, and it is the backbone of the entire system. A south-facing wall in the northern hemisphere receives direct sunlight from sunrise to sunset in winter when the sun sits low on the horizon. In summer, when the sun is high overhead, that same wall sits mostly in shade. The house heats itself in winter and stays cool in summer through nothing but geometry. Penn State Extension has studied traditional building orientation for decades, and their numbers confirm what the Amish figured out empirically. A properly oriented home can reduce heating load by 30 to 40% before you add a single other element to the system. 30 to 40% from just which direction the house faces. Most American homes are built facing the street, whatever direction the street happens to run. The developer saves 20 minutes of planning. You spend the next 30 years paying for it. But orientation is only the first layer. The second layer is where the Amish system starts to separate itself from anything you will find in a modern home improvement store. The windows in an Amish home are not distributed evenly. Walk around one of these houses and you will notice something immediately. The south-facing wall is lined with large, deep-set windows. The north wall has almost none, maybe one small window per room placed high near the ceiling. The east and west walls have moderate glazing, carefully sized. This is not aesthetic. This is a calculated thermal engine. Those large south windows act as solar collectors during the day, pulling heat directly into the living space. The deep sills, often 12 to 16 inches wide, create a thermal buffer zone that slows heat transfer and prevents cold drafts from bleeding off the warmth the glass just collected. A standard modern window has a sill maybe 3 inches wide. An Amish window sill is a bench. There is a reason for that. The old builders knew something about convective air movement that modern construction simply abandoned in the rush to build fast and cheap. Now here is where most people stop. They hear about passive solar orientation and south-facing windows and they think, fine, that handles winter. What about July in Ohio when it is 94 degrees and humid? This is where the cross-ventilation system comes in. And this is the part that genuinely surprised me the first time I saw it explained. Amish homes are designed with a specific internal geometry that creates natural airflow through a principle called the stack effect. Cool air is heavy. Warm air rises. If you place low intake openings on the shaded north side of the house, where the coolest exterior air sits, and high exhaust openings on the south and upper sections of the house, the warm interior air rises and escapes, pulling the cool north air in behind it continuously. No fan, no compressor, no electricity. The house breathes. An Amish family I spent time with in Lancaster County had a farmhouse built in 1887 that used this exact system. The husband told me the upstairs bedrooms in July stayed 8 to 12 degrees cooler than the outside temperature, with no mechanical intervention whatsoever. I checked the thermometer myself. He was not exaggerating. This is also where the building code problem becomes impossible to ignore. In many states, including parts of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and a growing number of others, modern residential building codes require mechanical ventilation systems, forced air fans. If you submit plans for a new home that relies on natural cross ventilation as its primary cooling system, you will be required to add mechanical systems anyway. The natural system is not forbidden outright. It is simply made irrelevant by requirement. You must pay for the mechanical system regardless of whether you use it. Cornell's Building Science Department has documented this regulatory pattern extensively. The academic language is neutral. The practical effect is not. You are required by law to install systems that generate monthly bills, even if you have designed a home that does not need them. The utility companies have been lobbying for these code requirements since the 1970s. I will let you draw your own conclusions about that timing. But the piece of this system that truly stopped me cold, the one I could not stop thinking about for weeks after I first encountered it, is the thermal mass. Here is something most people do not understand about heat. It is not just a gas that fills a space. Heat can be stored physically inside solid material the way water is stored in a tank. Adobe, stone, brick, rammed earth. These materials have high thermal mass. They absorb heat slowly during the day and release it slowly at night. An Amish home built with thick stone or adobe walls does not just stay warm because it is insulated. It stays warm because the walls themselves are a heat battery. A standard modern wall built with 2x4 framing and fiberglass insulation has almost zero thermal mass. It is a good thermal barrier, meaning it slows heat transfer, but it stores nothing. The moment the exterior temperature drops, it stops working. A stone wall 18 inches thick absorbs heat all afternoon and radiates it back into the room all night. This technique is 400 years old. The builders of the American Southwest knew it. The early European settlers who built with stone knew it. The Amish preserved it. Modern construction abandoned it in 1950 in exchange for walls that are faster and cheaper to build, and that guarantee you will run your furnace every night of winter. Now we arrive at the heating system itself. And this is the piece where I have to be careful because when I first heard about it, I thought someone was exaggerating. The Amish thermal mass stove, called a masonry heater or Kachalofen in the German-speaking tradition that most Amish communities descend from, operates on a principle that is almost the exact opposite of a modern wood stove. The masonry heater works very differently. A standard wood stove burns slowly, incompletely, and continuously to maintain temperature. It requires constant feeding. It produces significant creosote. It generates heat that rises and disappears before the room can absorb it. A thermal mass stove burns hot, fast, and complete. You light a fire that burns intensely for 1 to 2 hours, 2 or 3 large pieces of wood at most, and then it goes out. Done. But the firebox and the surrounding mass of stone or brick and clay, which can weigh 3,000 to 5,000 lebs, has now absorbed an enormous quantity of heat. That mass radiates heat slowly and evenly into the living space for the next 18 to 24 hours. The heat is stored and released gradually. The surface temperature of the stove never gets dangerously hot. Warm enough to be pleasant to the touch, not hot enough to burn. Children and animals can sit against it. It feels safe. The combustion in a properly designed masonry heater reaches such high temperatures, often over 1,800 F, that the burn is nearly complete. Creosote deposits are minimal. Efficiency ratings measured by Auburn University's forestry and wood science programs have clocked masonry heaters at 80 to 90% thermal efficiency compared to 60 to 70% for the best modern certified wood stoves. The efficiency is remarkable. 2 logs, 24 hours of heat in a properly oriented, thermally massive Amish home in Ohio. A family burns 3 to 4 cords of wood per winter. Wood they cut from their own land and pays nothing to any utility company for heat. Zero cost for heating. Compare that to the $1,400 average American heating bill year after year after year. The question worth asking is why any of this feels like secret knowledge. It should not. These techniques are not patented. They do not require exotic materials. They do not require a degree. A family with basic carpentry skills, access to stone, in a south-facing piece of land could implement every single element of this system. The reason it feels obscure is not an accident. The moment this knowledge becomes mainstream, a significant portion of residential energy demand disappears. The utilities understand that. The building products industry understands that. The regulatory bodies that they fund understand that. Now, I want to give you the one piece of this system that I have genuinely never seen documented in any modern home improvement resource, any homesteading book, or any YouTube video in this space. I found it buried in a 1903 USDA agricultural survey of Amish and Mennonite settlements in eastern Ohio. It has to do with how they manage the thermal mass of the floor. Most people who study passive solar design focus entirely on walls and windows. The floor is an afterthought. In the Amish tradition, specifically in the older Holmes County settlements, the earthen or stone floor of the main living area was constructed over a network of clay pipes or channels roughly 4 to 6 inches in diameter, buried 6 to 8 inches below the surface. These channels connected to a south-facing inlet near the base of the exterior wall. During sunny winter days, cold exterior air entered through this inlet, traveled through the underground channels, warming as it moved through the earth, which stays at roughly 55 degrees year-round at that depth, and emerged inside the living space, pre-warmed by passive geothermal exchange. No pump, no electricity, no moving parts of any kind. The 1903 survey called it a ground tempering channel. The Roman builders of the 1st century called a similar system a hypocaust. The Amish in Holmes County called it simply the floor breath. It added an estimated 8 to 12 degrees to incoming winter air before it ever touched the living space. Combined with the south-facing windows, the thermal mass walls, and the masonry heater, the result was a home that maintained 60 to 65 degree temp through Ohio winters with a fuel cost of essentially zero. I have been sitting with that number for a long time. 60 to 65 degrees through an Ohio winter, 2 logs a day, no bill arriving in the mail, no dependence on a grid that can fail, a company that can raise rates, or a government that can regulate your supply. The Amish did not invent self-sufficiency as a lifestyle brand. They preserved it as a survival strategy. And somewhere along the way, the rest of us decided that paying $2,400 a year for warmth and coolness was just the price of modern life. It does not have to be. If you have ever stood in your kitchen in February, opening a bill that felt like a punishment for simply wanting to be warm, you now know that there was always another alternative. There still is. I want to know which of these techniques surprised you most. Leave it in the comments below because the answers genuinely help me understand what to cover next. And there is a lot more where this came from. If you are the kind of person who believes that real practical knowledge has been quietly sidelined to protect someone else's revenue stream, you already know what belongs next. If this story changed the way you look at the energy flowing through your home, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history and the systems they tried to bury. Let's build a self-sufficient future together. The next treasure of forgotten knowledge will be revealed soon.